you pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I also next like to introduce Andy Wagner, the immediate past president for the Milwaukee Police Association.
Hi, thank you guys for being here. I'm Andrew Wagner, past president of Milwaukee Police Association, just retired, and I served 27 years with the Milwaukee Police Department. And it's my distinct honor today to introduce one of my friends, Dan Morrell. The actions of Officer Morrell and his team that day that we'll talk about demonstrate an ideology shared amongst most police officers, to be willing to sacrifice their own safety and sometimes their lives so others are protected from those who wish to do them harm. So Police Officer Dan Morrell, on January 2nd of this year, responded to a home on the city's north side for a report of domestic violence related subject with a gun. When Police Officers Morrell tactical team approached the front of the house, the suspect fired shots at the officers, then refused to surrender. During the gunfire, while he and other officers protected the community from dangerous armed felon, Officer Morrell was shot by the suspect. The bullet shattered Morrell's femur, and he was critically injured. While still in harm's way, other team members put themselves in peril and dragged Officer Morrell behind cover and applied a tourniquet, possibly saving his life. According to his medical team, Officer Morrell's commitment to serving and protecting our community will have to be on hold for what they foresee as a long year of recovery. He requires extensive rehabilitation that prevented him and his wife, Tiffany, who is also a Milwaukee police officer, from returning to work for an extended period of time. Officer Morrell and his fellow team members risked their lives for a family that faced grave danger, allowing 4 children to be rescued that day safely. Thank you, Officer Morrell.
Detectives, for example, we had a local situation, Sade Robinson. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it was a terrible case. She was going on a date with her boyfriend, and then she was cut up in several pieces, and it's horrible.
Ugh, it's awful.
Part of her body was found in Illinois along the lakefront. Her family's really upset. But there's only so many detectives to go around with other cases. Like, we have so many carjackings that are going up. This is a real issue, but how are we going to pay for it? How is your organization going to pay for that?
So let me give you a couple answers to this question, because it is, unfortunately, this is a story that I hear all over our country. A lot of police departments can't recruit the people that they need to keep us safe, and it's only going to get worse unless we fix this problem, and Donald Trump and I promise that we are going to fix this problem. First of all, you hear from police officers, and I've heard this story today, but again, I've heard it from all over our country. A lot of the reason that it's hard to recruit police officers right now is because our leaders have attacked the police for so long that a lot of people just don't want to do police work anymore. That is the first thing that leadership needs to change. We need to make it clear that we want good people, we want good police officers, we want the very best to join the American police forces all over our country, because unless we have the best people becoming police, public safety is always going to be a fantasy and not a reality. So let's have leaders who support the work of police, not people like Kamala Harris who put the police down and make their life harder. That's number one. But second, when we talk about money, first of all, when we talk about scarce municipal resources, I know a lot of towns and municipalities are dealing with limited resources. We have to ask ourselves, why are the resources scarce in the first place? And a big part of the reason is that we are spending millions of dollars housing, sheltering, and providing medical care for people who shouldn't be here. Those are the people who have come in across Kamala Harris's wide open southern border. When you take millions of dollars that should go to our local police departments and you put it in sheltering and providing medical care for illegal aliens, it is the least in our community, the least of these in our communities who suffer the most. It is innocent children who need cops to keep their streets safe. It is innocent poor people who need municipal services to work, and they are the ones who suffer the most when you have a wide open southern border. That costs money. It costs a lot of money here in Milwaukee, and it is a big driver of scarce resources. So what I would propose is you have a federal government that supports our local police, that you get the illegal aliens out of this country, and you free up precious budgetary resources to hire some police and focus on public safety. One final point on this is, I think, to the point about making police officers' lives easier, one of the weirdest things that exists in American public policy, and I didn't realize this until a couple years ago. I was a United States Senator. I have sponsored legislation to fix this, and I know President Trump agrees with me. Police officers are actually penalized because they don't get the same access to their Social Security benefits as most American workers, because effectively the way that it works is the dollar that goes into their pension is taken out of their Social Security. So you're basically penalizing our police officers, taking away their Social Security when they want to get to retirement. I think if we stop that, it would make it easier to recruit some police officers. Do the police officers out there agree with me? Stop that double taxation of benefits. I think so. And when I talk to police, I know that's a big driver. But look, unless we stop making the business of policing in this country so miserable by having our leaders attack the police, we're always going to have a problem recruiting the right people into police work. Any more, sir?
Senator Matt Smith from WISN-TV here in Milwaukee. Coming off just of everything you just talked about, it seems like some allies of former President Trump have said in recent days he needs to focus more on policy, just like you talked about, less personal attacks. I'm curious, have you had that conversation with him, and does he need to pivot, especially when you look to swing states like Wisconsin?
I don't think the president needs to pivot, and if I told him that, I can guess what he'd say. I think that the reason that President Trump has been so successful connecting with Americans is even when they disagree with something that he might say, they know that he just is who he is, right? I'd much rather have a political candidate who I disagreed with 25% of the time, but was a real human being and was willing to speak off the cuff, than to have somebody like Kamala Harris who hides behind a teleprompter and doesn't speak to the American people directly unless she's got a script in front of her telling her exactly what to say. I think the unscripted nature of President Trump is one of the reasons why his campaign gives a pretty good insight into the kind of president that he's going to be. Now, that said, we are focusing a lot on policy. We're here in Wisconsin today talking about public safety. I was in Pennsylvania yesterday talking about veterans issues. I was in Michigan the day before talking about how we have to stop the trade and energy policies that ship all of our manufacturing jobs to China. When Donald Trump was president, 12,000 American factories opened. The previous 2 terms, 60,000 American factories had closed. So we are talking about the policy and we're talking about the issues, and we're going to keep on doing that. But my only advice to my running mate is be yourself and let people see who you are, and I think he's doing that every day on the campaign trail. Anything else?
Jason Calvi with Fox 6 here in Milwaukee. Democrats are criticizing your visit here to the police union. They say, you know, your running mate is a convicted felon. They also point to January 6th. Your reaction to that?
Well, look, I think that Kamala Harris has weaponized the Department of Justice, not just against my running mate, not just against President Trump, but against a whole host of normal Americans for just exercising their First Amendment rights. I mean, not maybe the most significant scandal, but certainly a very large scandal is the Department of Justice went after a pro-life Catholic father of 7 for exercising his right to peacefully protest. The Department of Justice showed up, the Department of Justice leadership had officers show up at this guy's house and treat him like a common thug for exercising his right of First Amendment protest. And I think that every single police officer here would agree with me when they say that we want a strong Department of Justice that focuses on law enforcement. Why don't they focus on shutting down the drug traffickers at the southern border and the sex traffickers and let Americans exercise their First Amendment rights? That's not what the leadership of the Department of Justice should be focused on, but unfortunately, under Kamala Harris, it has. So I think that we are clearly the party and the movement of law enforcement. You talk to the field guys in the FBI, the people who are actually on the ground dealing with the bad guys, and they're as frustrated with their leadership as we are. We just want American leadership to empower law enforcement to enforce the laws. It's going to make us all safer if we do that. Any other local Wisconsin folks? And if not, I'll take a couple from the national pool. Okay. Sir.
Senator Vance, Chris Cameron at the New York Times, you were talking about the relationship between crime and immigration, and my question is on that issue.
Please.
In an interview when you were running for Senate in September 2021, you were speaking with Jack Murphy, and you were talking about previous waves of immigration to the United States. You said the following: you had this massive wave of primarily Italian, Irish, and German immigration, and that had its problems and that had its consequences. You pointed to these problems as being higher crime rates, ethnic enclaves, and inter-ethnic conflict. Should the United States have prescribed similar policies to what you're proposing now, including mass deportation, to deal with those issues?
Well, first of all, I also said there were a lot of benefits to that wave of immigration, but has anybody ever seen the movie Gangs of New York? That's what I'm talking about. We know that when you have these massive ethnic enclaves forming in our country, it can sometimes lead to higher crime rates. What we want is an American immigration policy that promotes assimilation, that no matter where you come from, you can become an American, but only if we have an immigration policy that promotes assimilation instead of doing things like what we've done over the last few years, which is have 25 million illegal aliens just setting up shop here with no control, no enforcement, and no real ability to police what's going on. That is a disaster. And in fact, what we did back in the early 20th century is that we recognized, and I think that we have to do that today, we recognize that at a certain level, America is a welcoming country to immigrants, but can only take so many people. We cannot take the entire world into this country. And I think that we're at a stage right now where we have to say we've got to slow those illegal immigration levels to 0. We do have to deport some people who have come here illegally. And I think that will promote assimilation and a common American culture that's in the best interest of everybody. Look, I'm married to the daughter of South Asian immigrants. One of the reasons why I think that we have such a wonderful and successful marriage is because we both very much feel like America is our home, like our children belong here. What happens when you have massive amounts of illegal immigration, it actually starts to create ethnic conflict. It creates higher crime rates. We've certainly seen that over the last few years, and I would like to stop it, and I know Donald Trump would too. Sir.
Thank you, Senator Vance.
Ma'am, sorry.
It's okay. A new ABC Ipsos poll was out today. It shows that Governor Walz, Vice President Harris's running mate, has a higher favorability among Americans than you do. What's your response to that poll? And also, what can you do ahead of the October debate to try to win over more Americans and your campaign?
Well, look, I don't put much stock in polls, especially at this early level. I think Governor Walz was nominated just a couple of weeks ago. He's received a ridiculous media honeymoon where a lot of press have hidden some of the things that he said and done. I mean, this is a guy who actively encouraged rioters to burn down Minneapolis during the summer of 2020. It's the biggest city in his country. And then, of course, his running mate, Kamala Harris, was offering to bail those rioters out of prison. I think when people know the truth about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, their anti-crime record, their pro-criminal record, the fact that he let rioters burn down the largest city in Minneapolis, I don't think his approval ratings are going to be that high, and I think that Donald Trump and I are going to win this race. But that's what the campaign is about, right? We have a little bit less than 90 days to make our case to the American people, to persuade them that our policies are going to make their lives better. And again, I think you contrast the failed leadership of Kamala Harris with the peace and prosperity of Donald Trump. I don't think there's any doubt we're going to win this race, but we've got to run the campaign, and we've got to get out there and talk to people. That's what we're doing every single day. Maybe do one more. Any other Wisconsin people that haven't asked a question?
Hi, my name is Graham
Sir.
Kilmer. I'm a reporter with Urban Milwaukee. You mentioned fentanyl. Here
Yeah.
in Milwaukee, we have a fentanyl and overdose crisis that began and really got worse under the first Trump administration. So what would you do differently the second time around?
Well, look, I think if you look at the actual data, the fentanyl crisis really, really took off under the leadership of Kamala Harris, under the border czar policies where she opened up the southern border, where fentanyl got completely out of control. And you talk to our law enforcement officers, and they will tell you that the fentanyl problem has gotten way worse in the last few years than it was at any previous time under any previous administration, Democrat or Republican. Now, look, we have an addiction epidemic that's been long running in this country, and I think more than any president in my lifetime, Donald Trump actually implemented policies to try to get this addiction problem cut down on. I mean, if you look at the number of overdose deaths and how they went down during Donald Trump's administration, and you look at Kamala Harris's administration where overdose deaths have skyrocketed, I think it's very easy to say, like so many other issues, the record of Donald Trump is one of success and American prosperity. The record of Kamala Harris is one of failure. Any other questions from Wisconsin press? Okay, so we'll do one more then.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator. I wanted to ask you, Trump has been getting attacked from his comments at the press conference yesterday about what he said about the top military honor. And veterans have pointed out, he said that the civilian presidential honor is better than what wounded veterans have received. And I wondered, what do you say to veterans who think that's demeaning?
Well, look, I was with a group of veterans in Pennsylvania yesterday, and trust me, the veteran community is very, very much behind Donald Trump. So, look, what I would say to people is, look, what President Trump said during a ceremony, and I haven't seen the entire remarks, but my understanding is President Trump said during a ceremony that a person who received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, he was saying some nice things about her. He was saying some complimentary things about her. Donald Trump, I've seen give out a Congressional Medal of Honor. I've seen him give out a number of awards and commendations to military veterans. And, of course, I myself am a Marine Corps veteran of the Iraq War. This is a guy who loves our veterans and who honors our veterans. I don't think him complimenting and saying a nice word about a person who received the Presidential Medal of Freedom is in any way denigrating those who received military honors. They're two different awards, and I think the president was saying some nice things about a person that he liked, and that's a totally reasonable thing to do. All right. So with that, before we close here, I want to bring up a couple of law enforcement officers just to say a couple of words. And we have first we have Alexander Ayala, and Alexander, come up and say a few words if you would. Thank you. And Alex is going to talk, and then our next guest is also just going to talk about some of the law enforcement challenges and some of the ways that if we have better policy, we can actually make this country a lot safer. Go ahead, Alex.
Hi, my name is Alexander Ayala, and I'm the president of the Milwaukee Police Association. I am a 24-year veteran of the Milwaukee Police Department. Senator Vance, thank you for being here to amplify our message that our members provide the highest degree of service to our community. We like to say that the Milwaukee Police Association is the force behind the force, and we use the words honor and service when we talk about our brave men and women of our department. Their importance extends far beyond the uniform and the badge, and it's about their commitment to serving and protecting us and protecting all of us. The challenges of policing in the city of Milwaukee are many. Low bail for dangerous criminals, the need for honest and concentrated efforts to pursue those offenders wanted on bench warrants, low officer morale, and an often anti-police society, rushes to judgment in officer-involved shootings, not to mention the staff crisis that requires officers to spend more time away from their families. Some areas of the city will at times go with only one squad to patrol the entire area of 44,000 citizens. As squads get pulled to other parts of the city to address high priority calls which can often be more violent in nature, that requires more officers. The Milwaukee Police Association believes that the solution to these challenges can be found right here. That's why the MPA is endorsing the presidential ticket of Donald Trump and JD Vance, because addressing these issues isn't as political, it's truly a matter of life and death to Milwaukee. So thank you.
Thank you. Great. And please stay up here, Alex, but I also want to have Andrew Wagner come up. Andrew was just recently retired as a career law enforcement officer, but he told me his wife has already put him back to work. So, Andrew, I appreciate you being here. Thanks.
Yeah, I got a day of retirement in, so I appreciate that. Thanks. But no, I 27 years serving Milwaukee and the citizens of Milwaukee, and what I have seen in the last 4 years, the denigration of officers and the loss of officers' morale. We had 1,700 officers at one point here. We're under 1,300 officers now. And with that drop in numbers, we saw a spike in homicides that over doubled our homicide rate. And then we saw a drop in those clearance rates. We had a high of clearance rates in homicides of 80, 90% clearance rates. That is down to almost 50% now. You think about the victims that are not being duly served by this police department and police departments across the country because they can't have staffing because of the defund movement. We had 200 detectives in our bureau. We're down to 125, and we have double the amount of homicides. I mean, you do the math. We can only keep up so much. So what we have seen with the support from President Trump when he was in office and when he looked at our cities, when Kenosha, for instance, had riots, he sent federal troops in there. He made sure that somebody had the officers back. And I can't be more supportive of this administration and President Trump because I know we have a partner in him, and I know he will always have our back. So thank you very much.
All right, guys. So with that, I want to thank the media, but especially the law enforcement officers for being here. Thank you so much for the endorsement. It means the world to have the support of the people that are fundamentally making it possible for our police officers to do their great work. I'm so grateful for it. I will say before we go that for the first time, Ush and I decided to bring our 9-month-old German Shepherd on the road with us. And if you know what a German Shepherd looks like, you know that he looks like a police dog. So we're about to hit the road, but nobody kidnapped my dog because we want him back. God bless you guys. Thank you all. Good to see you.